We want to look at, it's okay if you say, yes, I'm willing to help, but the money needs to go in this way. Or, yes, I'm willing to help, but I'm going to go ahead and pay that bill myself, because then I know what I am looking to help is in line with my values, and I can spend my money how I want to spend my money. So as a parent, you need to make sure you're clear. How do you want to help? What does help look like? And how do you want to volunteer those financial supports? And having clear conversations about that is important, because there's a real difference between a safety net and a hammock. You want to make sure that you know the difference, and that your habit to support doesn't enable your child from learning their own financial independence and responsibility. I talked a little bit about this with culture differences, but you really want to support their faith journey. Encourage their own spiritual growth, not forcing your own beliefs and your own desires onto them, because faith is a very personal choice, and supporting, not steering, is really necessary when it comes to looking at your child and their decisions and their growth. I know this is really hard because we love our kids so much, but we want to really leave a legacy of love. We want to focus on connection over control. We want to focus on understanding and support. And we want that to be our enduring legacy. We want our kids to look back at us and go, I'm sure some of the choices I made were really hard for my parents to watch, but they did a pretty good job of staying out of the way and letting me just be my own person and learn my own lessons. And so you want to think about, how do you want them to remember you when they're out of this phase, when they are done making this choice and they start to continue to mature and they make choices that maybe are more in line with what you'd hope for them. You want them to recognize how you showed up during that hard time was respectful, because what matters most is your love. And that is, of course, going to outlast every disagreement. And there's going to be plenty of disagreements, especially if we're offering unsolicited advice. So the ache and hope of this situation is real. We love our kids, and we don't stop loving them just because they grow up and they leave the nest. So maybe they're making choices that scare you. Maybe you're biting your tongue. Believe me, they know when you're biting your tongue. So you need to work on that in your internal work. And maybe even what they're doing really hurts you. Maybe they're struggling with addiction, or they're struggling in ways that are hurting them. And you're wondering if that silence kind of feels like abandonment. Well, here's something that I have learned, and I've had kids that have made all sorts of choices that I've been scared of. I've had kids that have struggled with addiction. I've had kids that have struggled in all kinds of areas. And here's what I've learned. Advice, even when it's loving, sounds like judgment. If you've been critical while they grew up, I know we were fairly critical parents, unfortunately, it lands wrong, even if you mean it with love. And so you want to make sure that you're showing up with love, and ask for a window of open. If you want to give some opinions, they need to invite that. And help, even when it's well-intentioned, can feel like mistrust. My youngest actually said that to me. He said, you jump in to help, and sometimes what I make up is that you don't think I can figure it out. And I was like, ouch, that's not the message I'm trying to send. What's really happening in me is I don't want things to hurt so bad, and so I want to help. But the truth is, that's not my journey to take. That's their journey. And that silence paired with presence says, I trust you. And so just sitting and listening with someone is really important.